Welcome back to the War Room. I'm here with old reliable Bert Johnson. How are you today, buddy?
Doing great. Still
It's a
alive.
special week. It's hate week for so many lovely people in this great country. We all have. This is the week where everyone's supposed to have that special color they hate. Going to meet them in some form of battle on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, maybe even Sunday. Who knows? And a great week to rebound off of one of the worst slates of college football we've had in a long, long time. And maybe we could probably spend 30 minutes debating what was the least interesting game of last Saturday. But Bert, just to kick it off, what was your main takeaways, if you have anything to take away from this last weekend?
So everybody was really dogging the SEC. Basically saying they don't have any games. And my main take coming out of that is, if you're relying on the SEC to give you quality games, aren't there three other conferences?
Mm-hmm.
There are three other conferences, and you're relying on the SEC to give you all your games for the week. That kind of seems a little unfair to me. And I get it, right? The SEC does this every single year. The week before Rivalry week, they go out and they schedule Samford or South Alabama or Southern Mississippi or somebody, barely even a college team. Most of them would schedule a high school team if they could. But that's the thing that frustrates me. I didn't watch any ball this weekend at all because there was literally no games. It's infuriating to me. The other conferences, you would think that they would take advantage of that time that the SEC doesn't have a whole lot of top of the top teams playing and schedule some of their big opponents. But what was the biggest out of conference game this weekend?
USC Oregon. And that was it. Oh, you talking about out of the SEC conference, or?
Well, let's compare and contrast.
Your biggest Big Ten game was 100% USC and Oregon.
Yeah.
Your best SEC game was Oklahoma Mizzou, which was still a more than 2-score outcome.
But still,
correctly. 17-6. So it was tight.
I still look at those two matchups, and they're reliable, or they're very relatable, is what I meant to say. I just, again, it's going into this week.
ACC, Miami and Virginia Tech, freaking woohoo.
Yeah, who cares? And again, everybody dogs on the SEC for playing that cupcake, and two things can be true at once, right? The fact that it's the third weekend in November and your schedule has South Alabama on it is trash. That shouldn't be allowed to happen. But again, to just sit here and point out at one conference, I think it's dumb. I think everybody needs to reevaluate how they schedule games. It sucks.
Here's the other thing. I believe 13 of the 16 SEC teams have a higher strength of schedule than all but 3 of the Big Ten conference teams.
Yeah.
So you can dog on us for having 1 week of cupcakes, but the reason that ours is in November is because half of our conference is having to play y'all. So y'all's strength of schedule is at least not in the bottom 100. Because at this point, believe it or not, it updated today. The top, the number one strength of record is still A&M. And technically, A&M hasn't even played any of the top 4 current teams in the SEC. They've played, they've had multiple ranked matchups, but that just tells you all you need to know. Ohio State's still nowhere on the chart for that. It tells you everything you need to know, right?
Number one strength of record is a bit of a stretch.
It combines your win with your strength of schedule. That's statistical.
I will
need to show you a picture.
I will give it to you, but I just think that there might be some skewed results in there. You're
Well,
basically looking at somebody giving A&M credit for being number one in the SEC. That's essentially what you're saying by that.
well, I'll tell you what. Let's just Google what the college football strength of record formula.
Yeah, this is exactly what our viewers want, us getting analytical.
So it
Flexing.
combines the teams. So it assesses how difficult a team's record is to achieve. Its exact calculation is complex and includes both schedule difficulty and team performance. A core component is understanding that SOR is a measure of the probability that an average top 25 team would have achieved the same record given the schedule played.
That's
Now,
a lot of
look,
words.
we want to talk about strength of schedule. College football strength of schedule rankings. Let's just take a quick look at this. All right, let's take a look at this. Top 25 in strength of schedule. Believe it or not, it's showing me as Wisconsin is number one.
Yes.
Florida, Arkansas, South Carolina, OU, Purdue, Kentucky, UCLA, Alabama, Texas, Syracuse, Auburn, LSU, Mississippi State, Michigan State University, Georgia, Illinois, Penn State, USC, Iowa, Mizzou, Rutgers, A&M, Oregon, Northwestern, Vandy, NC State, BYU, Oklahoma State, Minnesota, Tennessee, Stanford, Mississippi. I'm going to go until I hit Ohio State. KSU, West Virginia, Michigan. There's Indiana at 38. Arizona State, Baylor, KU, Colorado, Virginia Tech, Maryland, TCU, Washington State, Florida State, Miami, Washington, Boston College, Louisiana, Ohio State, 52nd strength of schedule.
So I see Kohl's coming into this episode with a narrative.
No, I'm just dogging on the Big Ten. That's what I'm getting at here.
I know.
You said it last episode, right? You have 18 teams, and none of the good teams play each other. How in the heck is Rutgers in the Big Ten playing Ohio State? You're saying, oh, you're putting non-conference cupcake games in week 12 or week 13 or whatever. I'm like, you're playing in-conference cupcake games for the whole season, and you're banking on beating one of our average SEC teams as your quality win. You're basically pulling a Notre Dame while being in conference at this point because the good teams ain't playing each other. You've watered down the conference.
And we can go back and again, we can go back and arguably make the same argument about our conference too. I'm
pretty sure I just named almost 2/3 the SEC before I named more than 3 teams in the Big Ten there.
That's fair, 100%. But the problem becomes is like when you have these conferences in these major conferences, right? And the one difference about the SEC as opposed to the Big Ten is the qualities of 16 through 10 are a lot higher than the qualities of 18 through 10 in the Big Ten. Heck, 18 through 4.
Yeah.
And that's the issue that we're running into is when you have these major conferences and you have the Northwesterns and the Rutgers of the world playing Ohio State every single week, it isn't fair when you have a team like Alabama who has to go play Georgia, Tennessee, Ole Miss every single week. It's just not. And again, I think the whole super conference deal really needs to get fixed. We need to, like, the fact that Ohio State is in the same conference as Penn State, USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon. They didn't play any of them this season, did they?
Ohio State has not played Penn State, Oregon. Let's see.
Well, Indiana.
They have not played Indiana. Let's see here.
So I will say this while Cole's searching up their record, because we do need to call like we can't have our cake and eat it too on this as well. If we're going to get on Ohio State for not playing the top of the top opponents in the Big Ten, I feel like we need to do the same for A&M.
Well, I would argue that of the people that A&M has played, they have played 3 ranked teams on the road. Period.
No, I'm right there
So
with you. I'm right there with you, right?
yeah,
But if what we are doing right now is we are saying that Ohio State and Indiana have not played the top teams in the Big Ten, and that's a reflection on that conference's schedule. We have to do the same thing with A&M.
sure. But here's the thing: A&M's at least played some. Like
I agree. The teams
yeah,
that they have played are better than the teams that Ohio State have played.
yeah. It's not even close.
Mississippi State is better than Rutgers. Mississippi State is better than Northwestern.
Ohio, Grambling State.
Yeah.
Let's just go through this real quick. They started off against TU and they won by a slim margin, literally 1 touchdown, right? 1 score game. Grambling State 70-0. Ohio 37-9. Then Washington 24-6. Then Minnesota 42-3. Illinois, which was closer than people thought. I mean, at the time, Illinois was in the top 10.
Illinois was supposed to be good this year.
Yeah, so that ended up not being the case. Wisconsin is basically going to be relegated to an FCS team this year. I don't know what happened to them. So that was 34-0. And then the Penn State game, 38-14. Then Purdue, blowout. UCLA, blowout. And then Rutgers. So, the game that's going to define everything is Michigan.
So what I'm saying is this, and this kind of shows you kind of where the Big Ten is, at least in terms of, the big names. I mean, they still played Washington, right? Washington has shown in the past 5 years that they are they've been in the playoff, I think, at least once in the past 5 years. UCLA is
just once, yeah.
UCLA is kind of a historic program. They did play Penn State. Penn State was supposed to be a higher ranked team or better than what they've shown this year. So I feel like Ohio State is kind of like we can only play the schedule that we're given. Like we if you went and you looked at our schedule at the beginning of the season, we had quality opponents on there, right? Like you still had to play UCLA, you still had to go play Washington, you still had to go play Penn State. It's just by the time they rolled around on our schedule, they had fallen off. So I'll give Ohio State the benefit of the doubt. I feel like you have to give them that.
Let's just see. Let's see how many Ohio ranked wins does Ohio State have. Okay.
Some of this
they only have 2 ranked wins, and that's Illinois and Texas, and that was week 1 Texas, right?
Yeah.
So that Texas team went on to lose to Florida, and then that Illinois team completely flamed out in general. So, I mean and look, that is giving them the benefit of those. We're calling those ranked wins as in they were ranked when they played them. We're giving them the AP bias.
So now you're starting to get into this debate, right? It's Ohio State was the number 1 team in the country coming into the season. Do you penalize?
No, Texas was.
Texas was. Well, they played 1 and 2 at the beginning of the series or the season. Yep. Excuse me. So obviously, in that ranked matchup, Ohio State has to jump Texas and take 1, right?
Right.
Now the question becomes: do you penalize teams for winning games?
No, absolutely not. No. No, I mean not unless someone else's strength of schedule is so much better.
So
that it's worth overtaking. Penn State got bumped down for that reason when they were still in the top 10 by 1 or 2 spots.
I have to argue the other way, and I say when you lose a game, if you win the game and it's a nasty win, if you fall out of the top 12. Like, if you're still in the top 12, I don't think it matters.
Yeah, especially that early in the season.
Especially that early in the season. So I think that it's hard for me to say Ohio State has not shown any blemishes this season,
No, they
have
haven't.
they?
No, but so here, I think the bigger picture we're talking about here is just how bad the Big Ten has been this year. Because name me another SEC team that has been able to intentionally bench their two best wide receivers in a conference matchup.
Yeah, you can't
play the season. You can't. I mean, heck, South Carolina, as bad as they've been, was this close to beating who is sitting third overall in our SEC standings in Alabama.
Yeah.
Kentucky was this close to beating Texas. Mississippi State this close to beating Texas. Mizzou was giving people all kinds of runs for their money. I mean, the bottom. I mean, like I said, we've already talked about this. You can't, of all the people to dog on anybody, the Big Ten has no right to dog on SEC for not having for playing a cupcake schedule, and really same thing goes with some of the the ACC, and especially Notre Dame. Right, the reason our
you can make
cupcake
some of
games are
the
coming
same
in this
argument. Same
well,
argument for the Big 12.
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess with the Big 12, this is where there's not as much of this because we didn't see a lot of SEC versus Big 12 matchups, if I remember correctly. But the reason we're having our last cupcake game this last week is because in order for any of these guys to have any good strength of schedule at all, they have to front load it like Notre Dame does with playing SEC teams, right? We saw Michigan versus Auburn, right? No, Michigan versus Oklahoma. Auburn versus who was it that they was it?
Wasn't Penn State. It was Auburn and Baylor.
That Auburn Baylor? I don't know. Yeah. There was that, and so Michigan, Oklahoma, Auburn, Baylor, and then there was a couple other SEC and Big Ten matchups. If I remember correctly.
Alabama, Wisconsin, but that one really Ohio State, close. Texas.
Yep. And then in regards to Notre Dame and A&M, and then of course Notre Dame double dipping and going Notre Dame and Miami.
Yeah.
So anywho, so the SEC is typically at least each SEC team has one out of conference game that is worth the crap. And
that is a requirement for each SEC school. They have to play one school that is in the Power Four that is out of conference. You have seen, like, for example, I'll just give you Mississippi State. The past 2 years, we have played Arizona State. The 2 years before that, it was Arizona. The 2 years before that, it was Kansas State. That is a requirement. And frankly, now that the SEC only has 8 conference games in a season. Next year, that changes and it moves to 9. I don't understand why it is still a requirement for the SEC to still have to play those other conferences.
And quite honestly, I don't think the SEC should have done that. It only hurts you. It really does.
Absolutely.
8 games is more than enough to sort out who's the best or at least who's the best who. And on top of that, if you're still going to keep that rule, but let's just say you got rid of the rule, right? So you're only playing cupcakes and then yourselves. So if you're in a down year, that might might help you. But if you're in a great year, that might do nothing but hurt you because your only measuring point is yourself, right? So your potential to have 5 through 8 or 5 through 10, any one of those teams still be ranked is pretty much none.
The problem is this, Cole. It's the SEC right now is the mark for college football when it comes to power conferences, and so it gets really difficult to give all those other conferences a legitimate chance of proving themselves. And it's unfair to the SEC that they have to be the bookmark, but that's the circumstance, right? When you have so much money and you have so much talent and you have so much like buy-in to your football programs, that's what's gonna that has to be the bookmark. That's because think about it, right? If the ACC were to have their own in-conference deal and you would have no matchups outside the ACC, you would probably have on a typical year, right? You would have one school that goes in and wins all the games, and like they don't have a bookmark against another quality opponent. So it
Yeah. So it begs the question: why on God's green earth is the SEC going to just slaughter themselves and do a 9-game conference schedule and play somebody at Power Four? It
I
makes no
no,
sense.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to be the devil's. I agree with you. I'm just trying
Yeah.
to argue on behalf of those other conferences.
Oh yeah. No, the other conferences. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense for them, right? But
Well, the problem from their perspective is if I can only play the schools on my schedule, right? I can only play the schools in my conference, and I get at the end of the season, and you're telling me that even though you're undefeated, it's not enough to get me in the playoff, or it's even though I've lost one single game, you're telling me you're going to go and put a team that has 5 losses against other SEC opponents in over me. I get where they're coming from. There has to be some intermingling between conferences. It just has to
oh,
happen.
and I prefer it. Like that. If anything, like I would be totally fine with the reverse of what's going on. Let's do a 7-game conference schedule and force it to be like 2 Power Four matchups
Yeah,
that you
I
have to
think
do,
that's fair.
because that would absolutely showcase the SEC as dominant as it is,
Agree.
and make other schools finally pick
And
themselves up instead of playing these gimmicks.
here's the other thing too, though, and it kind of gets lost in the shuffle. I think it's let's actually go and look at like when a not so great SEC school plays a not so great ACC school. Like let's actually those games actually matter from a conference standpoint. It when you look at who's who, it's kind of hard to tell when you're looking at like a Miami versus a like a Georgia, right? Because both of those teams are supposed to be the best of the best in terms of like the NCAA. If you really want to get a sense of how deep a conference is, you have to go back at the end of the season and look at those other matchups. It's matchups like Mississippi State and Arizona State from the season. It's matchups like Auburn Baylor. It's
Yeah,
matchups like I'm trying to think of another one, like
Michigan OU.
Michigan OU. Exactly.
Great example,
Um,
right? Because
let's
here's the weird thing: that Michigan team that lost that game could still absolutely, if they upset Ohio State, go and they would have, if one other thing happens, they're in the conference championship,
yeah.
because it's 18 teams that don't play each other. It's somehow magical. It's
And frankly, so if I had to, if I had a time machine and could go back and change anything I wanted in college football, I feel like it would be best if we kept the Pac-12
Mhm.
and we didn't get rid of any like Texas and Oklahoma stayed in the Big 12, and you had the Power 5 conferences again. You had your divisions all over again. However, NIL was a thing, and the problem becomes with that is it's a money deal, right? You're going to have some schools that don't get certain portion, whatever, right? But I think these super conferences are really hurting the sport.
I agree, and like I said, part of that is certain people being such much the primary, like, branding of a conference for so long, and then when they leave, all of a sudden it's like the rug's been pulled out underneath the conference.
Yeah,
And your greatest example of that was TU in Oklahoma, right? I mean,
yeah,
let's keep in mind, you flash forward back to 2010, was it 2009, when Texas A&M and Mizzou threatened to leave the conference, right? Because when I grew up, at least a third at least a quarter, sometimes a third of our games weren't even on television, but we were in a Power 5 conference, right? You had to listen on the radio. Now, part of that was there was a lack of networking at the time, but meanwhile, all of OU's games, all of TU's games were always on television, right? So there was this big whole. I mean, this is an age-old story of, word has it that A&M and Mizzou were convinced to stay, that there would be some kind of a Big 12, co-sponsored network, and it ended up being the Longhorn Network after they signed to stay for another couple of years. And when the Longhorn Network was rolled out, that's when they threatened to leave. Well, then you just go 10 more years down the road, and the well's drying up when Texas and Oklahoma don't have anyone left to play because they let that continue to marinate. Baylor and TCU have their up and down years. Tech was kind of up and down during the Kingsbury era. Oklahoma State up and down, but never made the playoff, if I remember correctly. So, what happens there is these two teams enjoyed an easier strength of schedule and being at the top for so long because they accrued so much money and tried to prevent anyone else from getting to the top consistently. So essentially, you let that go long enough, you don't have any competition. So guess what? No one's watching. And you're losing money to people who are taking the risk and are loading up their schedule and are bringing the best talent, not just for their team, but also to play against. And that's where all the money's at. Because who wanted to watch Texas go and play?
The argument,
TCU when TCU is losing all their out of conference games and is going to end up being a 500 team. Who wanted to watch that? It was Texas and OU beating down everybody, with the exception of a one-off TCU or Baylor team or something like that. And what I can't stand is the fact that they were the biggest part of ruining that conference, and they pissed the bed, but they didn't sit there and remake it. They just went to where the money was. And you saw some of the same stuff with the Pac-12. It was more of a group effort there, but it was very, very similar. All their best teams left and went. Basically it started when those first 3-4 teams declared they were leaving the Pac-12, and the rest of the teams that were there were saying,
USC,
without these
UCLA,
3-4 teams,
Oregon,
Washington. They were like, without these 3 or 4 historically great teams that front load their schedule with ranked wins of other people's conferences, no one's going to watch us, so we have to jump completely, right?
Yep.
So it's the same thing. And the Big 12 is just going to survive because you do have at least a good cult following of the teams that are left. And if they can accumulate enough leftover talent from the other ones, then they could be interesting. So Texas Tech, I think, is going to have to fill Texas' shoes because they do have the funding.
So the next question becomes is like, if I look at conferences, right, and I see like the next chips to fall, right, I have to look at Clemson and I have to look at Florida State, because they have consistently shown that they are not getting enough money to be able to compete with the SEC schools. They just aren't. And the whole idea of like revenue sharing, where certain schools, like there's basically the idea is in the SEC, like you share this pot and then the pot goes out to all the schools evenly. In what Miami and Florida State and Clemson are trying to do in the ACC is they're trying to say, since we bring in more viewers and we bring in more success, we should have a larger portion of the pot. And I don't think that is a sustainable thing. And so I just do not see it to where Clemson and Florida State are going to, and it's almost like one of those things where it's like, here we go again, right? When Florida State and Clemson move, the ACC is going to go under, because at that point, all the teams that are left in that conference are Syracuse, West Virginia, SMU,
Virginia Tech.
Like those schools have money, but it's nothing compared to the SEC. It's just not.
Well, there are a bunch of schools that have been historically 7 to 8 win programs that don't have the network power to accumulate an audience larger than just those who went to school there, right? I joke about it all the time. I'm going to joke about it when we talk about the matchup in a little bit. But as much as I hate TU, the reason that there's as big of a following as they are is because of their branding, right? It's 50% of their audience is T-shirt Walmart fans that go and buy a burnt orange T-shirt from Walmart and act like they're someone who went to school there. That's a great problem to have, right? Because it's like the Yankees. People will wear a Yankees cap anywhere, even if they don't wear the MLB, because it's like a fashion statement, right? That's branding. Yep. That's a team carrying across just those who are in the stadium, right? You have a lot of those teams in the SEC, you had that in the Big 12 before Texas and Oklahoma left. And then now that they're gone, all those types of brands that are built into the teams of which they're following encapsulates those outside of the university's, campus and their alumni. There's not many other places of the SEC that have those. Ohio State in the Big 10 is one of them. Michigan in the Big 10 is one of them.
Notre Dame,
right? Miami to some extent in the ACC, and then Clemson kind of.
Oregon,
we'll give them that.
Oregon,
absolutely. And then the list gets really, really freaking thin from there, right? In regards to stuff outside of the current SEC. So, that is the issue they have. It's not just what's the best teams right now. It's who's had so much historical success going back the last 20 years to where even when they're 6-6, their brand carries, right?
So like
North Carolina cleared out the moment they after their first touchdown, everything went south, right? You look at other schools when they have a 6-6 season, they can't fill a third of their stadium, and then you go to like Texas A&M or you go to Alabama, they could have 3 or 4 lost seasons. That stadium's gonna be full.
So one other thing I'm going to point out from a national standpoint. If you were to go tour and talk to students at Alabama or Ole Miss or Texas or maybe Oklahoma or Florida, if you were to ask all those kids where they're from, you're going to get a wide range of answers. Even when you go to and talk to like a smaller SEC school like Mississippi State, about 50% of those kids are coming from non-SEC states. They're coming from, I don't know if it's 50% per se, but generally speaking,
it may be that on some rosters. I mean,
Marcel
Reed for A&M came from Nashville, Tennessee.
I'm just talking about student population in general. Because from a financial basis. So you go and talk to people at Alabama, like you're going to be blown away at the number of kids that say they're from California, or Pennsylvania. And the reason I say all that is we talk about from a branding perspective about these schools that accumulates over time. It helps. The SEC has really done a good job at going out and trying to make these schools destinations and places for people to come. And that just makes money, and it makes your programs better, and it makes you stand out from a national standpoint.
Absolutely. No, I agree with all of that. So that's what makes comments from like Dan Lanning at Oregon that were completely unprovoked, by the way, trying to call out the SEC for not having a ton of big games this week and having out of conference. It's like, dude, first of all, you had no reason to say any of that. You're not fighting for a playoff spot. If you just exist for these next 2 weeks, you're in. You're probably not in the conference championship, but you're in. So shut up, go in the corner, enjoy having one of the worst strength of schedules of any Big Ten team, and just be quiet.
Again, though, I mean, he has a point in his statement, right? The SEC should be playing really hard opponents come this late in the season. They just should. I don't care if rivalry week is the next week or whatever.
I would enjoy that too, right? But because of the fact that we got to get our cupcake games in sometime, and you guys have to schedule us early for you guys to be able to stand on anything because you're playing freaking Rutgers this time.
That's
the counter argument. You're playing in conference this week, but your best team's playing Rutgers.
No,
your other teams are playing who? Oh, that's right. Syracuse is playing Notre Dame. What else we got here? I mean, your best matchups: USC, Oregon. That wasn't even like a 1-score game. That was the best thing you could come up with. What else have we got here? I mean, the other Michigan's playing Maryland. Freaking woohoo, right? Pittsburgh and Georgia Tech. That's ACC. Wisconsin somehow. Wait, what? Did Wisconsin really beat Illinois? Am I reading that right? Did that get under both of our radars? Because Illinois was ranked. That's wild. But anywho, Yeah. So either way,
No, I
Big
I
Ten's
see
not
your
doing
point.
much better.
I see your point,
So
but
that's why he has something to stand on there. Is like, congratulations, you're like SEC's playing non-conference games that suck, and with what 2 weeks left to
yeah,
go, in week 13. But just because you
you
guys are
have
playing
you've been
conference
playing these
games,
teams. You guys have been playing these kinds of games all season long.
exactly. You have nothing to stand on when the number one team in your conference
Yeah,
in the same week is benching both of the wide receivers for load management, basically. Like they got LeBron James over there and Kawhi Leonard. But it's in conference, so it's okay. No, matter of fact, I would say if it's if it's an in conference game that you're blowing people out regularly by 40, you have a problem. Either you
yeah.
have a mid 2010
It's
Alabama
time to
team.
start. It's time to it's time to start relegating.
Yeah, I mean, legitimately, this is what happens when you had so many conferences that were dependent on 3 or 4 teams to bring in all the cash, like what the Pac-12 was, like what the Big 12 was, and right now the current state of the ACC. And really, you can make the argument the Big Ten currently now they have 4 programs that if they just get their crap together next year and stop playing like a dadgum JUCO team, that the Big Ten could be back and just providing absolute fantastic conference matchups in no time if they play each other. Let's keep in mind the teams that suck this year that historically are at least 7 to 8 win teams with their out of conference schedule factored in, right? If you go, let's just go back to like what they should be in the average span of the last 10 years, the majority of the time. Michigan State has sucked for the last 3 years. I remember, 8 years ago, the Michigan State game used to be electric, like what LSU and Alabama used to be, 10 years ago when the when the final score was 6-9. Those
Yeah.
kind of games. Uh, Michigan has kind of had an
Game
off
of
year,
the
but they're
century.
still in it. Penn State, trash, complete trash. That's ruined
But
a
they've been
lot
good.
of matchups.
They've been good over the past 5 years.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Is this year trash?
Trash.
Over the past 5 to 10 years, they're
Meh.
historically good, right?
Yeah.
Post shower era. And then on top of that, I mean, who else has been down this year from the Big Ten? Wisconsin, absolutely Wisconsin. Are you kidding me? That used to be O-line and running back university, and this year their O-line has been letting more people through. I mean, than a JUCO
I can't remember
I don't know
anybody. The last legitimate elite player I remember coming out of Wisconsin was Jonathan Taylor.
Well, no, you had another guy after Jonathan Taylor that actually broke his record. If I remember
Melvin Gordon.
Yes. Or was it reverse order? Was it
I
Melvin
thought
Gordon
it
then
was
Jonathan?
reverse order. I thought it was reverse order.
Yeah.
But that's fine.
So
whatever.
And that's not that long ago,
deal.
right? They were still at least in the top 25 for the year or two after both of those guys left.
But again,
their collapse
those guys
has been the last year.
Those guys have been within the past like 2 to 3, 5-ish years.
Yeah, we're going off of like what are historically like staples of the Big Ten, right? You've got at least 5 this year that are not just down, but down bad, like barely making a bowl game at best, right? Like Wisconsin is one of them. So that's how you wind up with like Illinois being ranked, right?
Yeah.
Indiana, right? Their best win really is over Oregon, and Oregon, their strength of schedule ain't looking too hot either. Although the USC win helps, it helps. We'll see how they close out, but yeah, Wisconsin is one of the biggest examples. So like, look, the Big Ten doesn't have to really do much to get out of the same conversation that the Big 12 and the ACC is going to have of like, we've got 2 or 3 teams holding 90% of like the big games and actually like meaningful cultural implication matchups here. And that means a lot of the giant revenue holding us up. If we have 1 or 2 of these guys leave, the whole thing falls through, just like the Pac-12 did, and just like the Big 12 got its freaking nuts cut off when OU and TU left. So it's the Big 10 is going to be fine. They just need these guys to just reload and maybe stop having like Michigan State, stop having coaches getting involved in weird embezzlement or whatever scheme it was that got that one guy fired, if I remember correctly. You get like 2 or 3 of these 5 to 6 Big 10 schools that have just completely just kicked the feet up on the couch and called it a day, then the Big 10 is absolutely 100% back.
I agree, but part of the reason I think that has happened is a mass influx of talent to the SEC. I think there's some of that as well happening.
Especially in the trenches. I think that's the biggest separator. You have so many good skill guys in the Big Ten, but I think really the front seven talent is the biggest separator here. Skill talent, I think, is a little bit more evenly distributed with some exceptions, but I think I think there's some absolute unicorns that the SEC has been able to attract more of in regards to the big boys to their area, and that's historically always been the case, right? Because with the exception of Ohio, the majority of those guys are coming from Florida and Texas, and some of which the Gulf Coast. So they're having to be outsourced anyways if they're winding up north, with the exception of Ohio and some of the Midwestern states, just lower percentage. So, anywho, I'll tell you what. I think we made our
Let's talk about Rivalry Week.
Let's talk about it. So, you know what? We don't want to be full homers here, so we'll save our games for the closer here. Let's talk about one that may actually have some playoff implications here. Georgia Tech, right? Georgia Tech has been a very weird team. They're a team that has only lost one game and has won some really, really good games, right? A lot of good wins. But it's almost like every win has just been barely.
Well, they play in again, it goes back to what we just talked about. They play in the ACC, who's trash this year.
I know. They should have lost to Wake Forest. They were that close, and they had to pull off an ultimate comeback there. But they have beaten some decent folks. So I look at Georgia Tech, and I'm like, if one or two things go right for them, this could be a one-score game. I don't think they have any. I don't think they're going to beat Georgia.
Aren't they? Aren't they like automatically going into the ACC championship game?
No. So the scenario is if Virginia and oh my goodness, it's Virginia and somebody else. It's not.
I'm assuming.
It's not Pitt.
I think Georgia looks legit, man. Georgia
is on the ACC. Yeah, I think Georgia's going to beat him. I think it's a matter of if
Georgia's
on a one-score game or not. I agree. I mean, because Georgia has no weaknesses in offense.
So the question becomes,
they can do it all.
Oh yeah, you've seen that. Like
the only way Georgia Tech wins that game is in a shootout because Georgia's pass defense isn't that great compared to how historically it's been. Part of that is their pass rush in particular this season has not been as good as it usually is. They had a lot of losses there.
So the question for me is this, right? So Georgia Tech currently sits at 16. So they're at 9-2. I'm assuming that this loss is going to kick them out, right? But isn't there an automatic qualifier for the ACC?
Yeah, they should in theory have an automatic qualifier. In regards to the current scenario, there's two teams. It's
because the conference champion,
Virginia and SMU. So here's the thing: Virginia and SMU, if they win out, it's done deal. They are playing the conference championship, and whichever one of those two teams wins gets the automatic playoff seat. If any one of those teams loses, it's all up for grabs. It could be Georgia Tech. It could be maybe Duke. It could be Miami. It goes to a big flow chart, like huge Excel sheet. Bunch of people that are way smarter than me, crunching numbers and making up weird excuses as to why you would send Duke, Georgia Tech, somehow Pitt.
What a complete and utter shit show. Excuse me.
I know that's a correct statement. So, the first school in theory to get the go ahead would be Pitt. But we'll see. If Virginia and SMU take care of business, then it's for sure those two, and whichever one of those win goes.
Dude, yeah, that conference is nasty. Just the theories and the calculations that have to get done to figure out who's going to the conference championship game. That's
it's not just the losses; it's who they lost to.
No, agreed. And you want to know who I have to really sit here and point my finger at about all that mess, man?
Florida State.
No, it's Miami.
Oh yeah.
You can't be losing to Louisville.
No, you can't, especially when Louisville ends up being a 4-4 ACC conference team.
Like that's garbage.
In regards
like,
to the conference as a
Mario
whole, how
Cristobal,
is it that you have Stanford, North Carolina, Florida State, Virginia Tech, all on down years, plus Clemson? So that's part of the reason the ACC has sucked this year.
Dabo needs to go. Mario Cristobal needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
It would not surprise me if both of those guys end up gone before the start of next season. Like, this coaching cycle is insane.
So the problem with Florida State is they cannot fire their coach. They're bringing Mike Norvell back for one more year guarantee. They just announced that. That's basically because of the buyout. They're looking at that, and they're looking at who else where they would sit currently on the tier list, and they're like, nah, it's not worth paying that much to be the 14th best opportunity. Yeah, wait a season. So yeah, the scenario with the ACC with their rivalry week matchups, that Georgia Tech game will have implications. If Georgia Tech loses that pretty much cements them as out, even though that's not a conference game. It was just another loss to tack on to them. But the ACC as a whole, it's if Virginia or SMU lose, then the door's wide open. If they both win, that's your matchup. So let's keep it going. Ohio
State, Michigan.
Ohio State, Michigan. That is going to be so interesting to watch. I cannot wait.
So I'm gonna tell you what makes this game really interesting to me. It's the fact that Ohio State has not played anybody since week 1.
I know.
And
it's like big paper tiger energy, right?
And here's the crazy part about it too, right? Like, even if Ohio State loses, I mean, they're still going to make the playoff, right? Mm-hmm. But doesn't that do some, like, what's the scenario where Michigan gets in ahead of them, or is it Michigan gets in ahead of Indiana?
So
I think it's Indiana.
Scenario would be the only scenario in which I believe Michigan would get in ahead of them at a higher seed is number one, if they blow them out by like 40 points. Well, that's not going to happen. Right? This is probably going to be a one-score game. Number two,
so
if Indiana, they win, go ahead.
Indiana is 11-0. Ohio State is 11. Wait a minute. No. If Michigan beats Ohio State, that would mean Ohio State has one conference loss, and Michigan would only have one conference loss. And then it goes to a head-to-head.
Who did Michigan lose to? In
one
conference?
Of them, let's see. One of their conference
loss was OU.
Correct. It was USC.
Indiana? USC beat them?
USC beat them.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah, so I believe the scenario would be Michigan wins against Ohio State. I think it would be between them, like Michigan and Oregon,
and Indiana,
for who goes to the big. Well, but for who gets the other seed, because Indiana's going for sure, unless Indiana. Who's Indiana playing? Freaking
Purdue.
The other
Purdue.
Who? Okay, so they're playing. They're playing Midwestern JUCO Penitentiary University. In regards to how Purdue's playing this year.
So one of the things that's
what's going on. It's going to be between Oregon and Michigan of who would go to the conference championship.
So
if Michigan wins.
I'm kind of curious here because, like, this game is being played in the Big House, and like currently, just looking at like the spread, they have Ohio State as a 9.5 point favorite. I'm kind of curious.
What do they know that we don't? Because you would expect it to open at 14 or 13.5.
I was expecting it to be a little bit closer, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah. I think, you have to think it's a rivalry game. It's in the Big House. You have one team that has everything to play for. Michigan, both teams kind of have everything to play for.
Michigan's fighting to keep
get this, bro. Okay, so if Michigan wins this game and then they go on and beat Indiana in the Big 10, they're in the playoff.
And probably 4 seed.
As a top, they would get a top 4 seed.
First round bye.
That gets that's gone this year.
What are you talking about?
I think that's gone this year.
No, it's not gone. No.
The 4 they get a top. They don't get into the top 4 slots automatically. The top 4 they get an
Correct.
automatic into
But
the
then who would you
playoff.
put in place of the Big Ten champion at that point? We'll have that conversation in a week. So they would for sure be in the playoff. So keep in mind, I think they would be a 4 seed because that means you have beaten Ohio State
But
and
still,
Indiana.
Still, though, it's a rivalry game. It's at home for Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State is kind of a paper tiger a little bit right now. 9.5 points.
Yeah, I can see your point there. I can see your point there. Okay, let's look at what else is going on here. Hey,
Vandy,
this one
Tennessee.
actually has a lot of playoff implications. Vandy, Tennessee, that if Vandy wants to keep their playoff hopes alive, that's a must win for them. That's going to be very interesting. Also, Miami-Pittsburgh is going to be a big playoff implication game because in the ACC, Pittsburgh, despite being not ranked, sits atop Miami. So if Miami takes care of business there, I believe they would jump more towards the front of if Virginia or, oh my gosh, the other team I named, or SMU stumble and blow it at the end, then that could put Miami back in the mix, especially if Georgia Tech loses, right? So I think Miami would need to win that game, knock Pittsburgh down, and Georgia Tech would need to lose to Georgia, and then that could wind up in Miami getting back into the conference championship and potentially the playoff. Now, do I think all that will happen? I mean, Miami, that actually is a more clear path than you think. I think Miami will beat Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh showed me nothing against Notre Dame. That
Miami looks pretty straightforward to me.
Although, hey, straightforward games from our crystal ball, maybe that means put money on Pittsburgh. Yeah. Okay, I'm putting the house on Pittsburgh. But in theory, that game covers Georgia Tech and Georgia. I think Georgia may keep it close if it's a shootout, but if it's typical how things have played out, Georgia Tech won't win that game. So that might be the clearest path for Miami to get back in this, is those two doors to happen. And then you get Virginia or SMU to falter, right? In regards to who they play, they're playing Virginia Tech. Virginia, in theory, if they can stop Virginia Tech's run game, they're fine. We'll see how that plays out. SMU who do they even play?
It's not.
I'm not seeing them on the slate.
Neither am I.
Give me a quick fact check, Bert.
I'm working on it.
Okay, while you work on that, you've got Oregon, Washington. Shouldn't be close. Shouldn't be close at all.
Talk about Alabama, Auburn.
Alabama and Auburn. That is going to be interesting because that Auburn team has been played a lot different against Vandy a couple of weeks ago. A lot different. And if Alabama loses that game, it busts everything wide open. It's a clean slate for Georgia to go into the conference title game, regardless of what happens with A&M and TU.
SMU plays Cal.
Great. What a dynamic.
What a matchup.
Oh, my goodness. I'm going to make sure I set my TV to power off for that game. All right.
Anyway,
back to the craziness of what could happen with the SEC conference matchup. Look, SEC has 4 people that could go to Atlanta. You've got Texas A&M, who's currently undefeated in conference. I'm going to say that while I freaking can. And then you've got Alabama, who, despite blowing it against OU, still controls their own destiny in regards to the playoff, because if they do win out, they go. Right? Georgia,
they have the
tiebreaker with Georgia because they beat them in the regular season. So in theory, since both teams just have one conference loss, but they went head to head, Alabama would go despite pissing the bed against Florida State.
Auburn also is fighting for bowl eligibility. It's
it's a night game, Jordan-Hare. You have the Smiler as your head coach.
All I'm going to say, looking at the spread here, Alabama's number 10 in the country, 9-2. Auburn's unranked, 5-6. And the line is currently at 6.5.
That tells you everything you need to know about the SEC this year. Everything. I don't want to hear nothing from Big Ten folk. All right. So here's this is the only way. So we said there's 4 players in this, right? And A&M and Alabama control their own destiny. If both of those teams win, that's your matchup for the conference championship. If any one of them lose, it opens the door for Georgia and or Ole Miss. So if both of them lose, it's probably going to be Georgia and Ole Miss. If one of them lose, it's whichever lose plus probably Georgia. Because I think Ole Miss needs both of them to lose for them to go, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that's your matchup there. So the two most pivotal games to watch is going to be Alabama, Auburn, and then of course Texas A&M versus Texas.
Now,
go ahead.
I'll let go. No, you go for it.
Okay, so I don't know which one of these games you want to talk about first in regards to the conference matchups. But let's just go ahead and rhythm it all. Let's talk about what's going to be my result of pulling at least half of my hair out. Texas A&M versus Texas. That is going to be a very interesting matchup for a couple of reasons. Number one, Texas, in theory, is eliminated from playoff contention. But if they show up and beat the number three overall team in the country,
they're going to jump.
With their schedule, it could make an argument. I don't think that they could be one of the first teams out. Or if chaos happens, they could be in play. They need a lot of things to go their way. But in theory, Texas could still be fighting to save their season. We'll see. In regards to the matchup itself, from what I'm hearing, Texas A&M's best running back, Le'Veon Moss, is expected probably not to play, but the quote is, "We'll see," from Mike Elko. So we'll see what happens there. He's been out since the Florida game, and when he's in there, that offense is different in regards to how consistently, especially early in the game, they can run the football. You look at the Mizzou game, you look at 2 weeks ago against South Carolina, one of the biggest problems is A&M has not been able to run the ball very efficiently early in the game. So in my opinion, with this matchup, that's the first thing to look for is, can Texas A&M run the ball early, and can they force – I won't say super consistent Texas defense, but I'll say explosive, because in my opinion, they have one of the best hybrid edge rushers in the game at Colin Sexton. That guy can make plays anywhere. You can drop him in coverage. You can rush him. He can play the run game. If you try to read him, he can sometimes take both options away. So I mean, I think Georgia did a great job at sometimes just not even reading him, just going right at him, so he can't take away two options if you're going to run an option play at all. And then they did have Anthony Hill, but Anthony Hill broke his hand against Georgia. That's a big loss.
I've heard he might be trying to play, though.
He could try to club it up, but he sat out this last weekend against Arky.
So just from my sources, which is zero credibility at all.
Shout out Austin Graham.
It's actually not Austin. It's actually someone else. But I'm hearing he's trying to play. But if he's able to play, that changes things up drastically.
It does.
He's an electric player.
He's a blue chipper. He's a blue chipper without question. They also are going to be without another one of their linebackers for the first half due to an ejection during the Arkansas game. That also has implications, because the real strength of that TU defense is that front seven, especially at the linebacker position and on the edges. The middle, they have really good talent, but their middle guys were just a little bit more movable than what they were last year. Last year, they were elite in all positions of the front seven. So we'll see how that plays out. Like I said, I think the key there is, can A&M establish the run early at all? Part of that, will rely on how good Ruben Owens, Morrow, and EJ Smith as a running back group can play. But if you get Le'Veon Moss back, that makes things a little bit easier if he's actually healthy. But on the other side of things with Texas, this is a team that has not been able to run the ball at all. But as good as the A&M defense has been, that's been one of A&M's weaknesses. I think they gave up over 200 yards of rushing against Arkansas, if I remember correctly. And same with Notre Dame. Granted, that's with probably the best running back in the country. But A&M has had some weaknesses at defending the run game in some times this year. That's when things have gotten bad. So I don't know when you look at this, Bert, what do you think some of your key factors are?
So I'm really kind of looking at Texas A&M's defensive front. I mean, Texas has been struggling all year to keep Arch Manning stable. I have been really impressed with A&M's ability to get after the quarterback. That offensive line for Texas is bad.
You got 4 new guys on there, and that's kind of why.
I think.
Can you take advantage of it?
I think that bodes really well for Texas A&M. That being said, though, as you said, I mean, Texas A&M has struggled against the run. You saw that against Arkansas. I just don't know if Texas is going to be able to overcome that. That being said, though, we go back and we look at A&M and who they played this year. I think Texas is going to be the most talented team they play this season from an overall team perspective.
It'd be between them and Notre Dame.
And I don't know. I mean, from just a talent. I mean, let's not forget Texas was the number 1 country to start off the season. They have
number 1 team in the country. Yeah,
their backs are kind of against the wall in this game. It's a rivalry game. It's at home. The line is at 2.5 points. I think a lot of people are very careful with how they're judging Texas A&M right now, especially considering, their performance against South Carolina kind of being
took a lot of people's confidence away after a very good win against Mizzou on the road.
And here's the thing that's tough with that particular game. It's not the fact that you're down like 30-3 at home, but it's more so just Marcel Reed looked terrible in that first half. He looked awful. And so it really comes down to, is Texas A&M as good as everybody thinks that they are, given that number 3 ranking?
Mm-hmm. For me, that's why the run game is so important, right? Because what does that offense all tailor around? It tailors around establishing the run early. You look at the games that they struggled at. What do they struggle to do against Notre Dame early? What do they struggle to do against South Carolina early? And even Mizzou, when it was a 1-score game for almost 2 full quarters, what did they struggle to do early? Run the ball. And that forced the offense to have to air things out more, which caused a little more turnovers. It caused some issues. So that whole offense is predicated on getting you guys to put another man in the box, have a 7-man in the box, and only play with 1 high safety, and then do a bunch of freaking crosser routes for a lot of yards after catch. So that is how that whole offense works.
I'm curious how Texas is going to attack y'all's offense. I think just with Marcel's ability to run, you almost want to put a spy on him, but at the same time, you can't. You also
if you put a spy on him, then you're playing single high safety.
Exactly, with probably 2 of the best receivers in the country. So it gets really tough to defend that offense. But
if you can stop the run, that's the thing. So I think what A&M should game plan off of is the same thing that Georgia did. And what a lot of people have said is, look, let's just be honest. The cornerstone of that defense in regards to creating explosive defensive plays that kill drives before they even get started has been Colin Sexton, right? I talked about the fact that with his speed and strength, not only is he good at rushing the passer, he is also really good at taking away both options in your traditional read options, right? And even as fast as Marcel is, we've seen there have been teams that, look at what Dylan Stewart did in the first half against Marcel. It was very similar, right? There was a lot of run plays that either did not or did involve Marcel that didn't work as a result of having athletic guys on the edges. So in my opinion, with the fact that the main guy doing that is Colin Sexton, do what Georgia did. If you're doing an option, run it at him and force someone else to be the read guy. Don't do what other teams try to do and take him out of the play by reading him. Because if you try to read him, he's so fast, he could still bite on the primary and have time to go take out the secondary, or heaven forbid, he could be so explosive, he may meet you at the mesh point and blow both of them up. He's done that several times. So if I'm A&M, I'm running at him, because if you want to be a guy that's trying to be a Von Miller in a 3-4 kind of dude and be a guy that's lighter and quicker but still strong, I don't care if you beat me a couple of times, but if I can continue to wear you down and you're a lighter in the seat, 2-point stance kind of guy, eventually my 300-pound guy going in the right direction and knowing which way, what he's going to do versus you not knowing what he's going to do is going to win if you keep taking a beating, right? So in my opinion, reading him gives him less physical punishment and allows him to be more explosive on these run plays. So if I'm A&M, run at him. That's your only hope, in my opinion, on being consistent with someone that explosive, that consistent, that powerful, and that fast. If I'm Texas A&M, is run to him and don't make him consistently be your read guy. You're not. Ask Georgia, ask everyone else who's played that team. It didn't work out that well when they tried to do that stuff.
Fair.
Now on A&M's defensive, on Texas's offensive side of the ball, I think it's a very, very similar thing for them. I think Texas has to figure out a way to run on A&M because that is a little bit of A&M's weakness. When that defense has shown weakness, it's been in the run game. You look at Arkansas, you look at South Carolina, you look at Notre Dame. That's when they've had their biggest explosives and their biggest total collapse of defense. It started with not being able to start the run and then therefore giving up easier short game yardage passing plays for more yak. Right, when you can't stop the run, you're having to man up on the corners more and not have any zone coverage schemes that can take away hook and curl routes, all that stuff. I really think that Texas is very similar in what they have to do offensively. If they can't run and you just continue to drop back Arch Manning and allow Cassius Howell, Dayon Hayes, Albert Regis, and that Elko blitz package to just tee off, yeah, it's going to be a tough.
It's going to be a long game
for you. Yeah. So it's going to be really interesting because on one hand, A&M's strength has been running the ball, but TU's defense strength has been defending the run, right? And then on the other hand, TU's weakness offensively has been running the ball. The one little every now and then hole A&M's defense has been defending the run. So it's very interesting how the objectives of both offenses are similar. It's just one's been historically good at it, the other's historically been terrible at it. So we'll see which dam breaks first. But that's kind of your game right there, unless some kind of weird, crazy special teams crap happens or whatever.
It is rivalry week.
Yes. Would you say, as a generality, rivalry weeks turnovers are the biggest? Pretty much bigger than any game plan you can. If you take care of the ball, that's the biggest
absolutely.
thing.
Absolutely.
It's always the most important thing is taking care of the ball. But I think
I
think your punishments for not doing though are exponential in a rivalry game.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just from my rivalry, 1999 Egg Bowl. That's all you need to look at. Mm-hmm. Missed extra points.
You guys know a thing or two about that.
Weird shit happens in that game, man. But
technically, it was a piss. A piss and a miss.
No comment.
That was a great day for you. It was a great day for me too. And speaking of that game, let's go ahead and jump to that. So Ole Miss and Mississippi State. That game has playoff implications for Ole Miss if they lose, and season extension for Mississippi State if they win. So interesting.
Let me kind of set the stage for this game. Like, this game, in my opinion, is like the epitome of all like Egg Bowls. Like, I feel like I've seen this Egg Bowl play out a million times. You have one team that has everything to play for. You have another team that's fighting for bowl eligibility. Lane Kiffin, the coach at Ole Miss, is already probably taking the job at LSU. I don't know.
Got offered $90 million.
Well, they announced that Lane is going to have a press conference on Saturday, right after the Egg Bowl. And so, like, that leads one to believe that he's probably going. But what I am seeing from this game is you have one side of the tape that is focused on the college football playoff, keeping their head coach, possibly Atlanta, possibly. And then you have the other side that's just scrapping to make a bowl game. 9 out of 10 Egg Bowls that have that kind of setting to it, the team that's 5-6 wins that game. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
That's how it has always happened. But I don't know. I think just coming in Mississippi State, I think they've kind of been struggling coming into this game over the past two games. So Georgia kind of exposed them up front, right? Just leaning on them on the run game. Same sort of deal with Missouri. The offense has been struggling. Blake Shapen has got to go. Like, we got to get Camario reps at this point. Like, Blake's been
You need to
great.
get Camario throwing to a 10-yard target, like just a practice dummy.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing that is just, it boggles my mind. So against Missouri, do you want to know who had the most rushing attempts in that game for Mississippi State? It was Blake Shapen. I don't know what Jeff Levy is thinking. I don't like, you have two of the best running backs in the SEC back there. You have a great, like, if you want the quarterback to run the football, well, Camario's great. Like, is much more capable of doing that than Blake. So I don't know. I really hope Camario starts the game. I've been seeing a lot of push from State fans on Twitter to just go ahead and say, hey, like, Blake, we appreciate all you've done, but, like, if you lose the game, you're not going to make a bowl game. So you're not going to be getting those extra reps. Just go ahead and give Camario a chance, right?
Here's my argument in regards to why he's left Blake Shapen in there. And we've seen this with like half of the quarterbacks of A&M over the last 10 years. Yeah, you may have someone else who's been way more athletic at running the football, but because of how much of a liability they are at throwing a pass outside of an RPO or a screen pass, and it's more than 10 yards downfield.
So here's the issue with Camario. Every single pass that he has thrown has been to the right spot. In other words, he's passing the ball to the open target. He's just inaccurate with the throws. His deep ball has been on the dot. It's just those short
I've yet to see it. I haven't watched enough of him to see that.
It's just those short intermediate routes that have really been hard for him. And to be honest with you, I can live with that, right? If you're on par with your decision making and you have you're accurate on the deep throw, the short game should come easy with just repetition.
Yeah, but I don't think that's your best. I don't know if putting him in there with him making good decisions, but still not being able to hit his targets close at all on those hard throws is the best move. Because the reason that Blake Shapen is doing a lot of these rushes is because of the fact that when he pulls on the option, there's less guys keying off of him, right? Because they're not expecting him to.
No, I
would argue, in my opinion, Blake Shapen fits more of a traditional under center style offense than he does a college offense in the modern day. Because he's got a better arm, but when he does do a play action in the current offense he's in right now, it's not creating a lot of separation in the pocket for him, or at least more people biting off the run action, because of the fact that in the modern college offense, your run action, wait for it, I want you to really strap in now, I don't want to fool you, is this.
Yeah.
So I think Blake Shapen would be better utilized in an offense that's going under center more, so that when you guys do play action, he has more time in the pocket, because people are being more selling out for that. And
so the problem
if you're at least running people out of the pistol, your guys are coming to balance before the line of scrimmage with more momentum. And I think Bothwell and your other running backs have suffered from that.
I see your point. I just don't think it fits well with Jeff Levy's offense. With Jeff Levy's offense, there's a pre-snap read, there's a post-snap read. There's so many different reads happening. I think being under center and having to turn your back towards the defense to sell those play actions, it just doesn't allow that schematic to happen. So we don't have to spend too much more time. It's not as big of a game as some of the other ones. But I'm really curious kind of how this game's going to go. It's in Starkville. Again, I don't know how motivated Lane Kiffin's going to be. I kind of feel like he's in LSU's pocket. But who knows? It's rivalry week. Weird things happen.
For certain. I don't know what other game you want to talk about. I mean, Tech and West Virginia isn't going to be close.
I think
Missouri,
we've just
Arkansas.
about covered it.
Yeah, I mean, Missouri, Arkansas isn't going to be a barn burner.
No.
Houston and Baylor could be close, could be not. Who knows? But there's no implications for the playoff there. Like I said,
No, I
Oregon
think
and
we got it,
Washington
man.
in theory shouldn't be close. LSU, Oklahoma, probably not.
That's an interesting game to be
guess-
on. That's an interesting game to be on a rivalry.
Exactly.
I would think LSU and Oklahoma. I would think like LSU would want to play like Arkansas, and then Missouri would play Oklahoma or something. I don't know.
I mean, yeah. Well, the tough thing is like, who's LSU's biggest rival? It's usually Alabama. But Alabama is also Auburn's biggest rival,
and
also
Tennessee's
one of Georgia's biggest rival,
and Tennessee's.
Georgia's also has one of the biggest rivalries with Florida. So it's like there's like two teams who have like huge rivalries with three other teams.
Texas
I'd honestly
is
argue
like
LSU's biggest rival of the last 10 years has been A&M in regards to it turning into a rivalry game.
That's fair.
But yeah, I mean the most historical matchup for LSU rivalry
LSU and Ole Miss, the Magnolia Bowl.
You do have that. But that's never been played on the. Yeah.
But Ole Miss is always going to be with State.
Exactly. So LSU's had nobody to play during rivalry week. That's been a staple.
Maybe they can play Tulane. Do the cup.
Go play Lafayette.
Yeah. The Cajuns and the Tigers.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see how that goes.
They can't do that. They can't do that because then all the Cajuns would be showing up. Like all the Louisiana students would be showing up in purple and gold.
Yeah. That's right. That's about right. Yeah, I honestly think we covered everything. You have any final thoughts before we lose our minds? Because I'm going to be pulling hair out.
Lane Kiffin, get out of Oxford. It's a terrible place to live.
Oh, man.
The sooner you're out of there, the better, buddy.
If he goes to LSU, I don't know if they're going to lock down his Twitter or they're going to let him just feast.
So, I feel like we could have a whole podcast on just Lane Kiffin and this whole coaching cycle deal.
Yeah.
Let's cast our bets right. I think he's going to go. Let's cast our bets, and then we can answer it on the podcast next week. Where is Lane Kiffin going at the start of the podcast next week? Mm. Where is he going to be the coach? Who's he going to be the coach for?
It's tough. It's very, very tough. Here's the thing. We've heard nothing about what Florida's offered him, but yet somehow it's been reported that he's been offered $90 million from LSU. So why haven't we heard what Florida's offer has been? Because in theory, you would think Florida has more money in the bag, right? They're not fresh off of buying out Brian Kelly.
Billy Napier's contract was nothing close to Brian Kelly's buyout.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying is and I think Billy Napier maybe had 1 year left on it. Brian Kelly had a lot more, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
So in theory, let's just say that was the max to LSU you put up was $90 million. And that might have been spread out over, I forget how many years it was, but maybe that's a $10 million a year contract. Or maybe, I'm sorry. Yeah. Or maybe it's 12. I don't know. I mean, Florida might be able to do more than that, but we've heard nothing. Right.
Yeah.
So that's,
I see your point.
The few signs we have point to LSU, but it's honestly what I haven't heard from Florida that's got me concerned as to he could
There's one other thing that you have yet to consider.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Will Weeks. Sorry.
No. That's not what I was referring to.
Oh, okay.
There's also a possibility he doesn't go anywhere.
Correct. And then you would hate that.
No, it would suck. It'd be horrible.
Yep.
But to be honest with you, if I had to if my life was dependent upon it,
I know.
I think he's. Oh, it's hard.
Yep.
I
Yep.
I
You can
think
make a
Florida's.
case.
I'll be honest. I think Florida's out of it.
What puts them out of it?
Vibes. Just
Okay,
the
but
vibes
like,
I'm getting.
but what substantiation at all, even if it is just vibes,
No,
do you
that
have?
that is my substantiation.
But is there a source to the vibes, or like?
Yeah, my heart.
Okay, okay. Well,
No,
but what?
I see your point. I see your point when you say that Florida, in theory, should have more money. The problem, though, is why are we not like with LSU coming out and saying this is how much they've given him? What? Why is it that LSU just seems to be the leading candidate right now?
Yeah, that's the point. Is it's just because somehow that's been made public and Florida hasn't, but we know that the Kiffin family has visited both areas, right?
We know that,
So
but it. I don't know. I it's Lane Kiffin. Who knows what that dude is thinking?
look, he may go sign at Penn State tomorrow for all we know. Who knows?
For
But
real.
um, but I would argue sometimes it's the unknown that can be speaking louder than the known. And
Fair.
LSU putting their nuts on the table with this $90 million contract that they somehow scrounged up
And
after
some of
claiming they're
that,
going to be
I'll be
broke.
honest. Here's a theory. Some of that might just be LSU kind of saving face and saying, "Hey, this was the offer. We gave him a really good offer. He just said no." And so that way they can kind of save face with their fan base and say, "Hey,
We
we
tried.
offered, we tried. He just said no. Let's kind of go get whoever from the group of five and kind of save up our pennies and try again next year."
I don't know, dude. The more and more I think about it, the more that I mean, the less difference there is in the current state of the team which he goes to. LSU comes with higher expectations, but it's going to be the same lack of quality team that he would get at Florida, right? It's
I
still
don't know.
very
If
talented in
there's one
regards to their
thing,
raw athletes, but you're going to have
if
two
there's
unproven quarterbacks in either spot because Nussmeier's gone.
if there's one thing Lane Kiffin has proven at with his time at Ole Miss is he can bring in players via the transfer portal.
That's what I'm saying. Is he is so that's the argument I was trying to make is like the guys that are tied to him at Ole Miss, they're all gone. Like
Thank
they're
God.
all gone. They're gone. So if all your guys are going with you, why go to LSU where the expectations are higher? There's more drama. You've got to rebuild a larger portion of that staff, in my
I
opinion.
mean, at that point, why leave it all?
Well, more money. And we already talked about it, the easier
Well, if you
ability to establish a recruiting pipeline and being less reliant on the transfer portal.
but again though, it goes back to well that's what your thing was is being able to transfer get people to transfer. I mean,
But that's been a result of him not being able to
if you're trying
recruit.
to make yourself a better if you're trying to make yourself a better spot for transfers, I mean, that's a possibility. I don't know. I don't know.
No. My point is he can take all of his transfers, and Lane Kiffin is landing transfers because he's really good at landing transfers. That's a skill set of his. He hasn't been able to recruit because he, of honestly the destination of Oxford, So if you go to Florida or LSU, your recruiting goes up. So then the recruiting is good for both. So what does it come down to? Well, in my opinion, the destination of Florida and the lower expectations and the more time you're going to have to rebuild that program is better than that of LSU. Why go
No,
into that pressure cooker
we're in
right now when you can go
100%.
to Florida for more money and have a longer
The
leash and
one
still get
thing
all your guys?
the one thing you're not factoring into this at all is simply it's Lane Kiffin. Like logic has gone out the window. I agree with every point that
That
you
is true.
made. Logic is completely irrelevant. Plus, I think it's much easier to recruit at LSU than it is Florida. LSU recruits itself, and from a transfer portal perspective, it's the same sort of deal. I mean, the talent. I think the talent in Louisiana or the talent pool at LSU is the best in the country. It's literally 1A because you have Houston, you have Dallas, you have all of New Orleans, you have all of Louisiana, and you can probably reach up into portions of Mississippi as well.
I mean, but I think when Florida's relevant, they're up there as well. They're
No, I
traditionally
agree.
so with
I
either one I think recruiting is even between the two of them. It just depends on the year. When one's in the
fair.
top 10, the other's out, and vice versa, right? So,
I don't
and
know.
but both schools can recruit the same regions.
The other
The
issue
Florida
that
has
you're
more talent at home
the other
than
issue
Louisiana.
the other New Orleans is a pretty legit place, man.
Top three
The
high
other
school
thing
football
the
states
other
is
thing
Texas, Ohio, and Florida.
the other thing you're not considering is there's more in-state competition in Florida. Florida State's just down the road. Georgia recruits heavy in Florida.
Yeah, but with as small
You
as
got
Louisiana
UCF, you
is, I
have
mean, Texas is
Miami,
basically in-state competition for
you have
Louisiana.
Miami there. You have UCF, South Carolina, Clemson ain't that far away. Bama and Auburn are knocking at your door. I don't know.
I mean, the same could be said with Alabama barging in occasionally with LSU's territory, but LSU has to recruit Texas to survive, and Texas is very full of getting purged from. They're playing guys from Texas to go to Ohio State.
We were talking about it earlier. It's a national game now, so who cares?
Yeah. Anyway, I'll just say it. I think if he goes anywhere, I think he goes to Florida. Okay, you're going to LSU. And then we'll just say, since he's not here to speak for himself, that Thomas is going to be an idiot and say that he's staying.
Thomas would say he's going to A&M.
God, no. No, I don't want that. No. But yeah, if Thomas did say that, he wouldn't be allowed back on the program. But yeah, we could say, I mean, honestly, you want to know what Thomas's take honestly might be? Is that he could go to TU at the end of the season and take out Sark if Sark's going to the Giants.
That's fair. I don't think Texas is. I think the announcement's coming Saturday. I don't think the job is going to be open at that point. But okay.
Yeah. I don't know.
All right.
Desmond Howard had something to say about it. That was one of the weirdest Instagram stories I've ever seen. He seemed to know as in confidently, and everyone else is just like, dude, what?
Desmond Howard always does that, though. He always has some little college football predictor thing or whatever. What was it? One year he had A&M, Baylor, and SMU or something in there. I can't even. Whatever.
I don't know. None of us know. We don't know anything that's real. But thank you for hanging in there, especially through this episode with just me and Bert yelling at the sun for an hour and a half. But we do that when we're stressed out about to play our most hated school. So we'll come back here probably, after a couple of visits to the ER, whether that's win or lose. Bert, if you get any Apple Maps, address links, it's probably to the nearest bridge, very, very high bridge. And, you know where I'm at if A&M's losing. Just kidding.
Well, my game's before yours, so in all likelihood, I'll already be there. So,
okay. Well, just save me a spot. You won't need to bring any chairs, obviously, but just get comfortable.
Just bring the rope. I got you.
All right. Thank y'all for hanging in there. We'll be back next week, whether we're sane or not. And thanks for listening. Peace.
Hey, Ole Miss.